was just a suggestion. We don't really have to do it if you want to. So we would have the house that we live in North Carolina and the house in Florida with Grams and Pops.
Just 3 houses, yeah?
No, 2.
Oh, okay, 2. I like that. Yeah.
We could visit everybody. We could like swap houses when we wanted to go somewhere else. Like we would. I would pick someone's house someone that I know house to live in for that year.
Yeah, I like it.
Because we're gonna swap years.
Yeah.
Each year.
Yeah. That's cool.
And then.
Where would you go to school? You just go to a different school each time? Oh, okay. Yeah, that'll work. All right. So our story tonight.
I need it on like low, so that I can still see. Cause I still.
You know the game. Your eyes will adjust in a second, especially with that light on. So my story is going to be called Earthworm Jim. Now you know what an earthworm is, right? Well, it just so happens that, and you know, worms, they're not so bright, and they really just they don't think. They just are pure instinct. They crawl around, they eat this, they poop that. But on this particular day, one little worm was born, and he had thoughts, and he could think, and he knew he was a worm. But he had like worm superpowers. Like somebody stepped on him, it didn't hurt him, right? One time, somebody caught him and tried to put him on a fish hook, but the hook wouldn't even go through him. He was like an invincible worm. It was the craziest thing. And he could talk. But what he couldn't figure out is why the other worms couldn't talk. When he was born, he just thought, this is what a worm is. And he's trying to talk to the other worms. They don't talk back. And they're like, he's going, what's wrong with you? And, come to find out eventually, because he taught himself to read also. He started reading books and found out that worms are just kind of worms, right? They just are. They're just there. And in most cases, they're just meant for food. And he's like, well, I don't want to be food. And so he went and got a little tiny worm weight set, and he started doing little worm workouts. And he's like, push. And then he did like worm yoga, and he was able to stand up on his tail and spring up and jump. And it was the neatest thing to see this little earthworm.
They are his
jumping
tail.
on.
His body's his tail.
Yeah, you're right. His body's his
tail.
tail, but he learned how to coil it and push up because he was working out. And he got stronger and stronger. And eventually, he pretty much just got where he needed to go until one day a bird picked him up out of the ground, plucked him right off the ground, tried to eat him, realized that it couldn't, but during that time the bird was flying, and Jim is just looking out going, this is the most amazing thing I've ever seen. It's wonderful. I want to fly. How could I possibly do that? Well, the bird drops him once it realizes he couldn't be eaten. And you know what?
What?
He landed in the ocean. So down Jim went. You'd think he would have drowned in the water, but no, didn't drown. Just went down. He's looking around, and he sees all these massive creatures that he had never even imagined existed. Goes all the way down to the bottom of the ocean floor. It took him 15 years to walk all the way back to shore across the ocean floor every day doing this. 15 years, and he wasn't even that far out in the ocean. Now when he got back, that 15 years gave him a lot of time to think, and he had figured out a way to make wings for himself. He wanted to be able to fly. So he got to work. He went back, and got him a pencil and a paper, and he drew up his plans, and he started working on building some wings. Now he couldn't quite get it right to where he could flap them and fly, but he could get it to where he could jump off of a high cliff and just kind of soar down. So he built a big triangle, and he attached the triangle to his back. And then he crawled. It took him another 6 months just to climb this mountain, but he eventually got to the top. And along the way, of course, critters trying to eat him. And he's, at this point in his life, he's just like, yeah, go ahead, buddy. It's not going to happen. And so, like a snake would come and try to eat him, or a frog, and he'd just be like, yeah, whatever. It took him a long time just to get all the way up that mountain, and he had to carry his little thing his device that he had created. He got up there at the top of the mountain, puts his little thing on, his little glider, jumps off, and he just soars. And then it catches a big wind, and he goes, and he was just like the most amazing thing. It was perfectly quiet, and he could hear everything throughout the valley. He could even hear dogs barking like 5 miles from there, because when you're up that high, you could hear everything. And it was the most amazing day of his life. Was he above the clouds? No, he was right out of the clouds when he jumped off. So he's up on a big mountain, and the mountaintop is like in the clouds. So he jumps down, he comes out of the clouds, and he's just soaring around. And it seemed like forever, because he's a tiny worm, and the slightest wind would pick him up and carry him back up, so that was fine with him, and he got to fly and fly and fly. And it was just the most amazing thing. He thought... Did he ever die? Not that I know of. And if he did, I don't know how he would have, because he was invincible, right? I mean, he lived through everything, even people stepping on him or trying to stick a fish hook in him. No. Yeah. So, what a wonderful life he had. Yes, of course.
And then a big, huge person grabbed him and took him back to his house. That was me. And I put him in my fish tank with my fish. Oh, okay. And my fish ate him.
And your fish ate him, but he was invincible, so your fish would have just pooped him right out. It wouldn't have digested him.
Yes, he would.
He did? Oh, okay. All right. Okay, lay down, sweetie. You want to say goodnight?
Not yet.
To our recording?
Not yet.
Yeah, that's our story.
He gets pooped out alive.
He gets pooped out alive, and then what happens?
You make it up. It's your story.
Oh, it's my story. Okay, well, JJ takes him home, feeds him to her fish, and he gets pooped out alive. But it's a tiny fish tank, and one problem Jim has is this particular fish tank is round. And Jim can't crawl up the round glass, so he just kind of hangs out there until one day JJ comes home and goes, wait a minute, what is this? I fed you to my fish. And Jim, his head is sticking out of the water, and he looks at JJ and he says, I'm invincible. And JJ goes, ah, a talking worm! And then JJ's like, how can you talk? He goes, I don't know. I was just born this way. And then he told her the whole story. That's how we know this story. Is he told her the whole story of his life, that he thought all worms were born that way and found out they weren't. And then he tried and worked out and got better and even flew, and all the years he had to spend in the ocean.
I told you that?
Yeah, he told JJ that.
I did not get told that.
Yes.
I did not.
That's what he's telling you now in our story. And then JJ kind of felt bad for trying to feed him to her fish. He's like, yeah, I get it. Most people just think I'm a worm, but, that's how it is. So JJ picked him up, and she said, what would you like to do, Jim? He said, I got to tell you, after all my years, the one thing I've never had is ice cream. And JJ says, well, my dad makes the best ice cream on the planet, so maybe we can get him to make some. What?
Jenny's does.
No, that's just because you had that today. Don't even try it. Anyway, so we took him to Jenny's, and he said, blah, this doesn't taste like good ice cream. I'm just kidding. Anyway, so she sat and had ice cream with her worm friend, and everybody kind of walked by and thought that was pretty weird. They've never seen a worm eating ice cream. And that was an interesting story for everybody to go back and say, you know, I saw a worm eating ice cream today. And then their friends would look at them like, I think we need to take you to the hospital because that's not possible. Anyway, there it was, and it did happen, right? So JJ and that little worm, Earthworm Jim, became the best of friends, and she spent her entire life as friends with Earthworm Jim. He ended up staying at her house. When she was gone to work, he would just hang out and sometimes go through the plants and get a little dirt on him because he did like dirt still. One time, the cat tried to eat him, but of course, he can't be eaten.
And then the kitty actually became his friend too.
Yeah. And another time, the dog did eat him, and it took a week for that to come back out. And boy, did Jim stink and need a bath after that, let me tell you. Whoo-wee, it was bad. And that's it. So, to this day, nobody knows where Jim is. He's still alive somewhere, though.
You did not really hear that story.
Yeah, I did. True story.
I do not believe.
Earthworm Jim. Next time you talk to Uncle Eric, ask him if he's ever heard of Earthworm Jim.
He's not.
They even made a game about it. Let's see here.
I do not think that's real. What moves?
Yep, look. There's a video game.
There's a video.
There's not good internet here, though. But you can see the pictures of the video game. See, it says Earthworm Jim.
How do you play it?
It was an old video game back then. I don't remember how you played it.
I think you play.
But it's not coming up because the internet's too slow here.
I think how you play it is you'll be the worm and animals and people will try and kill you.
That's probably what it was.
But you'll try and do slick moves to get away.
Yeah. You okay, kid?
You have the cough too, right?
Not like that. It's a little concerning. You've had it for a few days. There he is, Earthworm Jim. He's got his super suit on in that picture. Cool, huh? Okay, say goodnight.
Good night.